Welcome everybody. We'll give everyone a few minutes to jump on here and then get started. Feel free to say hello in the chat if you see a few of you are doing that already. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining. Get started here in a few seconds. All right, we've got a good amount of folks on the call and it is being recorded. So hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Feel free to say hello in the chat to see if you're already doing that. Welcome. This will be the 6th session, gosh, I can't believe it, of this 7-part series. Thanks to those that have been along with us for the ride, and welcome to those that are joining us for the first time today. The session today will focus on ITOM visibility and dive into some advanced use cases. A few housekeeping items before we get started here. Everyone will be muted upon entry. Just going to assist with some bandwidth issues. With that being said, we definitely encourage you all to participate and ask us questions throughout the presentation. You know, we can get those answered live, or we have some time allotted at the end to really dive into those further. So please participate, ask questions. You can utilize that Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom, or you want to throw them in the chat. Just using that Q&A tab is a little bit easier for us to see who's asking those questions. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our first presenter of the day, Emily Walker. Take it away, Emily.
Thanks, Cooper. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining our ITOM Talks Fall webinar series. My name is Emily Walker, and I'm a solutions consultant for our ITOM platform. With me again today is my awesome teammate, Lauren Miller, who is also a solutions consultant for ITOM. So again, like Cooper mentioned, this is our part 6 of our ITOM Talk series, and today we're focused on ITOM visibility, advanced discovery use cases. We also have the last session happening on October 27th, where we will be covering the Better Together story of ITOM and CSM, Customer Service Management. And in this webinar, we'll be focusing on proactive customer service and solutions. So we hope you join us for that last session happening next Wednesday. Before I begin, I want to give a quick background on the experience that Lauren and I bring. So before joining ServiceNow as a solutions consultant, I spent 12 years on the IT side of the house. I served in the United States Navy for 8 years, and that's really where I got my start into IT. After I got out, I continued my IT career path in the commercial spaces of healthcare, a SaaS startup, and an AI company. These opportunities gave me the ability to lead my own help desk teams and IT department before making the transition into solutions consulting. I have a true passion for helping people, and coming from the IT side of the house, I understand a lot of the pain points that your teams continue to face on a daily basis. I truly love our platform and especially our IT workflows because they have the ability to give back so much to our IT leaders and teams through automation and proactive response. So I'm excited to share with you some of these advanced use cases for ITOM visibility today. But before we do that, Lauren, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again or for the first time. My name is Lauren Miller, also a solution consultant here at ServiceNow. And before ServiceNow, I was at Microsoft, also doing consulting, but on the implementation side. So both public and private sector. And on the governance side of things, learned a lot about the need for visibility into your digital estate. So really excited to share that with you today. And back to you, Emily. Thanks.
All right. So here's what we have in store for you today. An overview of ITOM and more specifically visibility and the CMDB or configuration management database. We'll also dive into 4 advanced discovery use cases, which include TLS certificate management, tag discovery, data integrations from third-party tools, and firewall policies. And in between each of these, Lauren will be giving us a demo on how these work within the platform. And we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. But again, if you have any questions during our time together today, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A panel and we'll do our best to answer them. Here's our safe harbor notice. Please take a few moments to look this over. Today, we might talk about some features that aren't fully yet available. However, we will mainly be sticking to with what is currently released. So before we jump into ITOM visibility and the advanced use cases, let's start at the beginning and understand why having a fully populated CMDB is so important and how easy we make it with the ServiceNow platform. The CMDB is your organization's digital foundation and is the foundation of the ServiceNow platform. It's that central repository of configuration items, so things like computers, routers, firewalls, and applications, and other infrastructure elements. The CMDB holds the data needed to drive outcomes for your transformational goals. The most successful CMDBs are business aware, which allow you to understand the impact of a configuration item to the business. So for an example, if your CMDB is populated with servers and applications that support your email system, then having that full end-to-end service mapping can help you to create tasks if a specific component in that chain is about to potentially fail or has failed. This gives our teams the power to go from reactive to proactive. To ensure our CMDB has business context and remain healthy and trustworthy, we recommend populating it in an automated fashion. And to do this, we recommend ITOM visibility, discovery, and service mapping. This really helps to lay the first two layers of your CMDB foundation. Having manually populating your CMDB can really lead to inaccurate and unreliable data, such as duplicates or misclassification. Having unreliable data sources and lack of automation is a leading cause of failed CMDBs. The last thing you need to do is having people on your team make decisions based upon bad data, because this can ultimately lead to outages, increased risk, wasted time, and potentially loss of trust. The only data that should really ever be put into your CMD manually is data that is not discoverable. So things like potentially the CI ownership and devices not found on the network. ITOM visibility delivers the fastest time to value for gaining clarity of your entire operations estate. And don't we all want that? I know this was always a struggle for me when I was running my own departments. I was constantly asking my teams, what do we have and what does it do? We needed a way other than spreadsheets and diagrams to keep track of our configuration items. Driving real-time visibility starts with understanding your operational landscape. The strategy for ITOM visibility is to work seamlessly across your on-prem and cloud operations for both traditional physical and virtual workloads, as well as newer containerized applications. And we'll talk more about how all this works shortly. But first, let's break down ServiceNow's ITOM platform. Most of you are probably familiar with this slide and with ITOM, but I'll give a quick overview for anyone that might not be. ITOM, IT Operations Management. It's broken down into three main parts: visibility, health, and optimization. ITOM as a whole enables organizations to gain visibility across infrastructure and applications, maintain service health, and optimize cloud delivery and spend. It utilizes automation and insights to identify anomalies and solve issues before they occur with cross-team automation and workflows. ITOM also easily integrates with existing software and groups key applications and capabilities into packages that scale as your business needs change. First, we'll talk about ITOM visibility. ITOM visibility consists of discovery and service mapping, which gives you that integrated real-time visibility across all your on-prem, cloud, and serverless infrastructure. And not just infrastructure visibility, but an accurate view of how these services flow together across your hybrid IT environment. This is where we will be focused on today, but I'll also briefly explain health and optimization. ITOM Health includes event management and health log analytics. These help you to track and maintain the health of end-to-end services in your organization. AIOps, machine learning, and event management help to reduce event noise and alleviate chasing false positives. You're able to quickly pinpoint the root cause of service issues so that you don't have to sift through enormous amounts of disconnected event data to know what's wrong. And anomaly detection to predict when issues might occur before end users are impacted with faster root cause identification and resolution. And finally, we have ITOM optimization, which contains cloud provisioning and governance. Within CPG, you can provision private and public cloud infrastructure and services. You achieve consistent management and cost visibility. ITOM optimization features provide an integrated, service-centric approach that maximizes business service quality, drives efficient processes, and ensures robust governance and compliance. So let's focus on ITOM visibility, specifically discovery, and how ServiceNow is able to find configuration items in your network and then populate your CMDB. Discovery is able to find computers, servers, printers, and a variety of other IP-enabled devices and the applications that run on them via our MID server. The MID server is a lightweight, agentless Java application that runs on a customer's Linux or Windows server, typically a virtual machine. The MID server queries your ServiceNow instance for probes to run and then executes the instructions in those probes or patterns that it specifies. The MID server then returns the results to the ServiceNow instance where the sensors process it. Once it gathers this data, it then names these applications and devices as unique CIs, configuration items, and then stores them in your CMDB. The MID server passes all of this information and communications on port 443, an outbound only port, which helps to ensure that our communication from the MID server to the ServiceNow instance are secure, and all communications are initiated inside the enterprise's firewall. We'll break down the discovery phases a little bit more on the next slide. ServiceNow runs the discovery process in 4 phases. This approach really helps to prevent slowing down on our network as we're trying to collect all of this information. The first phase is the scan phase. The scan phase scans your IP range to determine what's out there. The second phase, the classification phase, needs to classify what we find. So for example, what type of CI is it? If we find a server, is it a Windows server or is it a Linux server? Then we move on to the identification phase. Once we determine what we find, we identify whether it's already in the CMDB by using CI identifiers to prevent duplicates. This helps to ensure that each CI is unique. Again, we're keeping our CMDB healthy without duplicates. It's asking, hey, have we seen this before? If any updates, if we haven't, then it creates a new configuration item in your CMDB, but if we have, it updates the CIs. The final phase is exploration. This phase is responsible for going out into the environment and discovering more of those CI attributes. So things like CPU usage, serial number, and other key attributes. Now that you've learned about how discovery can capture CIs and store them in your CMDB, we'll talk briefly about service mapping and the value that they bring together. Typically, we see discovery and service mapping paired together under the ITOM visibility SKU to provide that full 360-degree view of how CIs are connected together within your organization. Our ultimate goal is to bring all of these sources together to provide the most accurate, real-time view of your business services. So with step 1, with discovery, we're finding those applications and devices on the network, naming them as unique CIs, configuration items, and then updating our CMDB, that central place for all the information that discovery finds. We call this horizontal discovery, and in this slide, we are able to see this on the middle and left graphics for both infrastructure and application CIs. On the right graphic, we see service mapping. We call this top-down discovery. This is really step 2 of building out our service-aware CMDB. Service mapping finds all the application services in your organization and then builds a comprehensive map of the CIs discovery has found. Service mapping connects these devices to business services, such as email services or web services. Again, giving us that full end-to-end picture that significantly helps our IT teams understand their landscape in real time and in scale. And with that, we are ready to dive into the next layer, our third step in making our CMDB even more powerful and service aware with ITOM visibility and advanced use cases. But before we jump in, I want to pause for a minute to see if anyone has any questions that Lauren and I can answer. I'm not seeing any in the chat right now, so we will continue on. First up, TLS certificates. Certificate management is a common challenge across every organization, regardless of industry. And the biggest pitfalls in managing certificates are the lack of a central certificate inventory in a central place, no automated ability to renew certificates, and no 360-degree view of the certificate's lifecycle. And all of this becomes more challenging the more certificates that you have. Inevitably, every organization will have a certificate expire. Expired certificates can lead to outages, increased security risk, security breaches, significant fines, and potentially loss of customer trust. So not having visibility into your certificates, into when your certificates expire, can have a significant impact. The certificate inventory and management solution uses ServiceNow Discovery to discover certificates across your entire estate with lifecycle data. This is accomplished through port-based discovery during your regular discovery scans, certificate authority-based discovery by connecting to your CAs such as DigiCert, and URL-based discovery by pointing your ServiceNow instance at a URL. Certificates are then populated into your CMDB and related to the resources that they are installed on. Standard request forms are provided to request and renew certificates. A single dashboard enables you to visualize your certificate estate, including the lifecycle data. And proactive tasks and notifications are generated 60 days prior to a certificate expiring to ensure ample time to renew the certificate before it actually expires. And finally, incidents and alerts are generated for already expired certificates, enabling seamless escalation for major incidents. With the latest release of certificate inventory and management, you can now automate certificate workflows, enabling you to increase efficiencies, reduce risks of human error, and ensure governance. Automated certificate workflows begin by submitting requests in the service catalog for either new, renew, or revoke. Next, a routing policy processes the request to the certificate authority with the option of having an approval before being processed. After that, workflow automation sends the request to the CA for processing, and at the same time, creating a change request to ensure governance of the process. Once processed on the CA, certificates are then stored in the CMDB and their status is updated. Standardizing the certificate request experience helps to increase efficiency, reduce risks of human error, and ensure governance. The certificate inventory and management application can be found on the ServiceNow store at store.servicenow.com. To be able to take advantage of this application, you will need to have the ITOM visibility SKU, discovery plugin, and configuration management for scoped applications plugin and installed. All right, Lauren, let's turn it over to you for our first demo.
Thanks, Emily. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and my Wi-Fi has been having an especially hard day, so hopefully we can keep this going. Let me know if I drop off or the audio cuts out, if you will. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start. Let me downsize my camera here so I can see everybody. Perfect. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the certificate management dashboard that Emily was talking about. So really important use case for discovery, for visibility, because as she mentioned, when you're not tracking your TLS certificates appropriately, properly, it can really be a leading cause of outages that we see that can be very costly and obviously a negative impact to your customer service, to your employees, whatever that may look like at that service level. So we're using Discovery to pull in this TLS certificate data and then manage it with this dashboard, which I'll show you in just a moment. But I want to show you kind of behind the scenes that like Emily was talking about, how we actually turn this on, pull this data in once you have visibility in the certificate management capability. So the first way to use Discovery and basically tell Discovery to go out and look for your TLS certificate data is to go to your port probes module here under Discovery definition. And you're just going to look for this TLS certs piece right here and make sure that this port probe is active in your instance. So if it's not active, make sure you activate that. And that's going to be the quickest, most simple way to basically tell Discovery. So any existing Discovery schedules that you have configured in your environment already, it's just going to add an additional layer. Okay, we're already going out and searching for these network devices, our end user devices. Now we're also going to be looking for any TLS certificates that we find along the way. and bring those back to the ServiceNow CMDB along with any other CIs that you would normally find. So you're going to first go ahead and activate that port probe. As Emily mentioned, there's a couple of other ways to turn that on and to bring that information into ServiceNow. So the other way, as she mentioned, is using that URL. So you can actually enter a new URL of your choice. So whether that's a web application that you have running in your environment, or you can see a couple of common ones that I have in this instance, certifications are public knowledge to certify that web application. So you enter that and it's going to pull in that individual TLS certificate for you to manage. If you've been managing TLS certs to date on a existing spreadsheet or file, you can also start there, pull that in. You can upload that bulk file and have that information into ServiceNow. But we definitely, on top of that, kind of recommend activating that port probe for discovery so that even though you might have that foundation, how you've been tracking to date, you want to bring in any additional TLS certs that you might activate along the way, anything that you might revoke or renew later on, so that you have the most current information to manage. And so I'll kind of start to show you, now that we've brought that information into ServiceNow, either activating that port probe with discovery or using patterns to link directly to something like DigiCert or GoDaddy, like we have out of the box to pull directly from your CA or the URLs, whatever that looks like for you to pull that information into your CMDB. This dashboard's really making that actionable. And so the pieces of information that we're most concerned about, right, are going to be those expiration dates. And that's how we're really going to manage these to avoid those outages. So I'll go back and just show you what I just did here. But really what we're looking at, and I'll open this up so you can see the detailed points of each of our certificates that we're pulling in. We're looking for this valid to data point. This is our expiration date for each of our certificates. So we can get ahead of the curve and auto create these tasks to go ahead and renew or revoke, whatever that looks like. And this is going to actually happen automatically. Let me go back and show you what that looked like on our dashboard here. You can see that there was a priority 1 task automatically created on my dashboard that I can track. And when I open up that task, it was auto-created. And by default, these tasks are going to be created 90, 60, and 30 days out from that expiration date that it's pulling in. And so based on who this was assigned to, the specific certificate renewal task, in this case, we have Amelia, could be a team. It's going to create that task automatically. It'll be a notification to whoever's in charge of renewing it for your PKI team or whoever. But you also can manage them all on that dashboard to see what tasks have been auto-created to make sure we're not missing any of these renewals. We're not letting any of our certificates accidentally expire, and then we have an entire service going out that we absolutely should have renewed to keep it from going down. And because our discovery tool out of the box is pulling in all of our dependencies and our relationships between CIs, it's no different for our certificates that we're pulling in. So that same certificate that actually is expiring, and I just got that task created for, I can actually see where that certificate lies in my environment and the actual service, the application that's dependent on that certificate. So if I forget to renew the certificate, if that task isn't auto-created and managed, like it's being brought to my attention in the dashboard, in this case, my rewards processing application service is going to go down. I'm going to have an outage because the certificate in particular is supporting that service running in my environment. So we can see the dependencies being pulled in. We can see some critical details. In this case, we have a DigiCert certificate that we're working on. And then that, like we just saw, that task is going to be auto-created for you to manage. Now we can also kind of get ahead of the curve, right? So we can also see far out, maybe 90 days isn't enough. You have a smaller team. You can also see long-term because it's bringing in all that certificate information. So it already knows the expiration dates. And as your discovery schedules are running, it's going to make sure as we're getting closer and closer, it's creating those tasks accordingly. But we can see by months out which of our certificates are going to be expiring when. And the different colors here, the blue versus green. So any service that you've defined in your ServiceNow instance to be mission critical, it's a critical service, we cannot let this go down. It's going to go ahead, any specific certificates that are supporting a service like that are going to be created as a priority 1 renewal task. And anything else that's supporting a service that maybe is not mission critical is going to be created as priority 3 task to manage. So that's the difference there. So you can kind of differentiate that way as well. And again, this is all great that it's in the dashboard for you to manage for your PKI team. This is incredibly useful. But again, all of this data is coming from your CMDB. So again, we're making that CMDB as thorough and complete as we possibly can, even with this detailed level of information at the certificate level. And so the last thing I'm going to show here, we see a couple of other panes here on these different dashboards about requests and renewal tasks. So I'll actually show you from the service portal, when you activate certificate management, either from the store or if it's in your instance already with this visibility, it's actually going to include 2 modules in the service catalog. So we've now gone to our service catalog module where users can request something. And we get a couple of new categories under the certificate management section here. These will appear for you. And there's 2 manuals. So just like it sounds, typically we see this maybe if it's a service owner, a developer, or if a PKI employee wants to go ahead and manually create a task for themselves to go ahead and track and have their own tasks created to renew or to request a new certificate, they can use the catalog for that. But where the automation workflow capabilities really come into play here with certificate management are with the automated flows in the certificate management area of our service catalog here. And so these are actually workflows that integrate, in this case, with DigiCert. And so when a PKI staff, typically they'd be limited to them, right? They actually can go ahead and launch this specific catalog command, and it's going to integrate and talk directly to DigiCert to go ahead and launch this action. So requesting a new certificate, it's going to integrate with DigiCert to execute that command. To renew a certificate, again, it's talking directly to DigiCert to do so. Revoking a certificate, and each one of these is going to open up a form for you to fill out those details to execute those commands automatically with these flow in a service catalog form. So it's really simplifying how you can manage these TLS certs to avoid those outages. And it really does start with that visibility. So we're using Discovery to get visibility to our TLS certs and then managing accordingly. And with that, I'll answer any questions in the Q&A while Emily goes on to our next topic.
Thanks, Lauren.
There was one that popped up in the chat if we want to take that.
Yeah.
It says, can the CSR be generated in ServiceNow? And can the private key also be stored safely in ServiceNow?
Let me verify that and we'll answer that at the end. I know we just did some changes to that, so we'll come back to that one if we can, Cooper.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, let's continue on and talk about tag governance. So what exactly are ServiceNow tags and tag governance? Tags are text labels that you can associate with items like your records and pages in your ServiceNow instance. Tags enable you to group and organize items, and tags can be set to global, shared, or private. I'll explain. Global tags are visible to any user, while shared tags are visible only to specific users and groups, and private tags are only visible to a single user. In the use case of tag governance, a tag is a label consisting of a key value pair that is assigned to a cloud resource. Tag governance helps to solve the many challenges we face in this fast-paced modern IT world. Resources are being deployed at rapid pace using various deployment tools across a multitude of environments. Many organizations struggle to enforce tag policies due to not having a centralized way to govern tags across environments. And in turn, this leads to increased security risk, crowd sprawl, wasted resources, and cost overruns. The Tag Governance app helps to set up tagging policies consistently, giving you a better governance and establishing compliance. Here on this slide, we see the many benefits of automating the governance of tags through a single dashboard utilizing our CMDB. ServiceNow Tag Governance helps to identify CIs or cloud resources that are inconsistent and do not comply with the policies that you configured to govern tag data. You can also remediate or fix tag compliance issues that you identify with audit results using configurable remediation scripts. Your organization may use tags to categorize its assets to improve visibility into cloud usage and costs. Effective tag management also improves reporting and overall operations management efficiency. When we pair ITOM visibility, discovery, and service mapping with tag governance, we're able to see the power of end-to-end tag auditing and remediation. Tag discovery can be used by all major cloud providers such as Azure, AWS, and GCP, and container ecosystems through service mapping patterns. So once the tags are discovered, service mapping can create application services that are based on these tags. Typically, organizations using tagging are in virtualized, hyper-converged, or multi-cloud infrastructures. The tag governance application can also be found on the ServiceNow store. Tag governance is split into two parts, auditing and remediation. The auditing portion is entitled through ITOM visibility, both V1 and V2, and this allows for remediation of tag values within the ServiceNow CMDB. To make remediation updates on the actual resource records in the cloud platform, the ITOM governance subscription is required. Make sure to check with your local account team for pricing details on these two parts of tag governance. All right, Lauren.
Awesome. Let me share my screen again. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now switching gears a little bit to exactly what Emily was just talking to. So this tag governance, so using our discovery to bring in those tag details for your cloud resources is going to be kind of a primary use case there. So then you can go ahead and we'll kind of talk to how you manage that data once you've pulled it in, to identify any gaps in tag governance and kind of fill those in with remediation. So first, how this actually works behind the scenes. Where I am now is in this discovery patterns module. So again, these are all out of the box. Of course, if you've been using discovery following along, you can of course customize any patterns, but it's quite a bit of work. So we're going to be looking at some of our out of the box patterns that ServiceNow has built and should be out of the box in your instance here. So I've searched for my tags patterns that we've already built. And the patterns are basically, I'll click into one of my AWS tag patterns here. We have them for Azure, a couple of our other cloud providers. And basically what the pattern is doing is it's that pre-built logic, and it's telling discovery based on these specific pattern steps and logic to look exactly for something specific. So in this case, we're looking for tags specifically from some of our AWS resources. And then it's telling it where to put those in your CMDB. So we can stay consistent with common service data model, keep our CMDB clean. Because as we're doing these advanced use cases, right, we're pulling in quite a bit of data at the tag level, at the cert level. We can get really messy really quick. So that's why we've built our patterns out of the box to make sure we're complying with those CMDB tables, putting everything in the right place, and still making sure we're not bringing in any duplicate data that we can't trust. So this is how this data works. It's telling it here. We can see some of that logic telling discovery tool how to run to pull in some of this tag data. So as you're pulling in and you're running cloud discovery, it's going to go ahead and start to look for those tag data. And I'll show you exactly how that looks on one of my AWS virtual machines. So we saw how that pattern works to tell discovery what it's looking for. Here in my AWS is my cloud resource dashboard when I've run cloud discovery. And this is my AWS. I'll go into my EC2 instances. I'll find my specific test VM here. And so I've run cloud discovery looking for this specific EC2 in my AWS environment. And if I scroll all the way down, I can actually see that I have two tags that in AWS, I've added these tags. I've added the tag values, and to ServiceNow discovery using that pattern we just looked at is bringing those values in. So now I can see the actual tag details for my individual attributes that I'm bringing in with cloud discovery at the individual CI level. So we can verify that that's working there. And as because this is cloud discovery, as I maybe add a new tag right now in AWS, we're gonna rely on those cloud APIs, so the AWS APIs, to push updates back to ServiceNow rather than necessarily waiting for me to run my next discovery schedule maybe tomorrow. So we're getting near real-time visibility to this tag data that's so important. Now, kind of zooming out to big picture, it's great that I can see the tag detail on my one EC2 instance here, but we really want to start to manage this data just like we did with TLS certs. So in my tag governance module, and again, this is a visibility capability. So once you have the visibility account, and again, work with us, work with your reps to make sure you have this capability or not. But you're going to see this tag governance module, and under it, I have my 3 applications here. So starting with our policies, this is basically how you create rules to enforce these governance and tell it exactly what you're looking for when it comes to tags. What are the rules that you have in place? So this example that I have here, basically the logic that I've set is, okay, in AWS, any of my EC2s or virtual machines that are Windows need to have a tag that identifies the owner. Okay, so I have set this specific policy to specifically just look for an owner tag. I'm not really concerned in this case about what the value is, although I could set it to say it needs an owner, and that owner needs to be Lauren. You can set it on both logics if you need to really specify what the value is. But in this case, I don't care if the owner is Lauren or Emily or Cooper or anyone else. I just want to make sure there's an owner tag and the value is not empty on all of my Windows EC2s and AWS. So the logic I've put in place for this rule so I can run these audits is actually pulled directly from my CMDB. So you can see that I'm using these classes, these tables from my CMDB, and I've specified what kind of resources or CIs I'm talking about. And I can narrow that down further, really specify what I'm talking to here. And then I've set my tag filter. So again, this is where you could set the value needs to be Lauren or development team for an owner. But I've just gone ahead and said the key needs to be an owner tag and the value just cannot be empty. That's the compliance I'm looking for in this example. And then I can go ahead and either click to run that audit. I can run discovery to do regular audits on these tags to check for that. And I can see these actual results as I'm running these audits to see what CIs were compliant here and met the tag compliance that I've specified with my policies. But I can also use my dashboard and tag governance to kind of zoom out and get that wider view of my compliance when it comes to tag governance, identify any gaps that I may have based on those policies that I've put in place. And I can also see some trends of how my tags are also being used across my different cloud resources that I'm running discovery on. What tags are being used, what aren't being used, where are my gaps? I can specify a specific policy like the one we just looked at to see where my gaps are based on the classes that I specify. Are there EC2s that aren't tagged appropriately? Do they have different tags that I'm not aware of? So you can really use this dashboard and those audits that you're running and the results to see where those gaps might be when it comes to tag governance. But more importantly, you want to start to take action to actually remediate when you do find gaps in the compliance there. So going back to my policy, there's two ways to run remediation with our tag governance module here. One is when you're creating this specific policy, so that same logic we were just looking at, I can actually opt to create a task. So what this will do is if it runs and it finds gaps in this owner tag rule that I made, if it says, hey, you actually have a couple EC2s that don't have this tag on it, it's actually going to automatically create a task and assign it to whatever group or user that I specify, and they'll go into AWS and remediate automatically. But if it's really important to me and I want to make sure this is done right away, we also enable automatic remediation with our workflows. So you actually create your own workflows based on the policies. So I've created one for that same policy we just looked at to auto remediate the tags to keep it compliant and actually go and auto remediate back in the cloud. So what we'd be doing here is when the audits run and it identifies gaps in my compliance based on those policies, it's actually going to auto remediate and use APIs to go back into AWS, into the cloud, and apply those tags and values that I may have specified. And we can preview the remediation and see any auto remediation that has run as I've specified it to. So in summary, we're using visibility just like we saw for our TLS certs to get more visibility into not only our tags for our individual CIs and get that data into our CMDB, but again, really making it actionable, making it manageable so we can get ahead of our tag governance here. And with that, Emily, back to you.
All right, thanks, Lauren. Give me one moment here. Okay. We had a couple questions come into the chat about, are these things that we're talking about today, are they out of the box? And I just want to stress the importance. Make sure you're checking the ServiceNow store for each of these integrations to see the requirements, and check with your account team to get accurate pricing for these. So the next step, we have Service Graph connectors. Service Graph connectors are developed by both our partners and ServiceNow for popular third-party data sources. Connectors help to significantly improve CMDB health and support customer outcomes. Again, we're always going back to try to showcase the importance of having this healthy and accurate CMDB. Service Graph connectors are compliant with the Common Service Data Model, which helps ensure that customers load data into the appropriate tables. This provides customers with peace of mind that their external data is available to their ServiceNow solutions right from the get-go. Sorry about that. We have a dog in our house today. So here's an example of how these Service Graph connectors could work for your organization. Say you may want to use Discovery to discover your data center and cloud estate, but then use SCCM and JAMP for your endpoints. This can be done through Service Graph connectors, as Lauren will show us here in just a minute. Connectors were released starting in waves around the Paris go-to-market, and every day we're continuing to grow the number of connected applications. Our Service Graph connectors can also be found on the store under integrations. Please make sure to check the details of each specific connector. Note that some fees may apply for some and others may be free. And this list is continually growing. So just be sure to check back at the ServiceNow store. All right, Lauren, over to you.
Awesome. I'll share my screen one last time here. Okay. All right. So what I'm sharing here is our Service Graph connector. In this case, I've chosen to demonstrate our Microsoft SCCM Service Graph connector. This is one we hear of being used a lot. So this is going to look really similar to the rest of our Service Graph connectors that you may see. The formatting is going to be really similar. And so for each of our Service Graph connectors, you're going to see these same applications under the module, right? So the first thing you're going to see is this guided setup. So we try to make it really easy, right? It's going to walk you through in a task by task. We have partnered with, in this case, Microsoft or any of our tool partners that we've jointly created these integrations with to make this as simple as possible to kind of jointly create this funnel, right? The whole purpose is that we're pulling, for example, in this case, we're pulling the detailed level of analytics and information from SCCM that to really complement discovery and used all that data in partnership with our discovery tool to really enhance the CMDB. So we're not missing any level of detail here. So you can see the guided setup here in the task form. You're also able to actually see the specific data sources that are going to be pulled in from SCCM. So we can see actually the specific data points that we're going to be identifying here. In this case with SCCM, a lot of the common use cases that we see for this one are things like we need a detailed level of our software information pulled into ServiceNow. And, you know, we want to use that with our discovery and we want to have the complemented best of both worlds. We've been using SCCM for a long time or any of the other tools, Landsweeper, any of these other tools that we've built Service Graph connectors with. We don't want to make you choose. We really want to make sure that we're pulling in these detailed level of data from tools like SCCM without compromising your CMDB. So we still want to keep it clean, pull them into the right place in the ServiceNow CMDB, make sure we're keeping that common service data model. We're not bringing in any duplicates. And that's why each of our Service Graph connectors are actually built in. They have our built-in IRE or Identification Reconciliation Engine built in. And that's actually the capability within our discovery that filters out any duplicates. It's basically normalizing the data before it hits your CMDB to keep it clean, keep it compliant. So again, we can trust that data. And that's no different from any data that we're pulling in from a third-party tool with our Service Graph connectors. Even though it's from somewhere else rather than our discovery tool, we want to keep it clean and make sure you can trust it when it hits your CMDB. So we can see with these built-in connectors exactly where the data is being pulled from, how these schedules would actually run in what order when you're running discovery from these Service Graph connectors, when you're integrating and importing there. You can have multiple instances connected from SCCM or for any of these other tools. So if you have multiple accounts or if your domain separated, you can upload multiple instances and connect variously there. And then each of our Service Graph connectors comes with an integration dashboard. So you can keep an eye on how much you're importing, where is that data going? Are there any errors that you need to address? Our whole goal, even when it's coming from a third-party tool, is to really maximize the visibility and make sure you know how you're setting this up, you know where the data is being pulled from, and you know exactly how it's landing in your CMDB. So as Emily mentioned, in this particular case, the Microsoft SCCM Service Graph connector at this point in time is actually free. It currently does not have a discovery license dependency. So if you'd like, you can go to the Service Graph store and try this out for free or take a look at it. And then as she mentioned, we have a growing list of Service Graph connectors. We're working with different tools and partners every day to build out these Service Graph connectors so we can give you what you need and pull this data in as effectively as we can to your CMDB. So growing list, and check the store for details. If there's a specific tool you're looking to pull from, definitely connect with us or your ServiceNow reps and we'll help you pull it into your CMDB.
Thanks, Lauren. All right. And last up for advanced use cases, we're going to be talking about firewalls and policies. So firewall requests and task management helps firewall admins to source firewall requests and helps in automated change record creation. Firewall audits flows help risk and audit teams to identify orphan firewall policies and automate audit requests to validate the firewall rule policy with the firewall policy owners. This also gives your teams that single dashboard to track the firewall inventory, hardware, location information, and other firmware details. For many organizations, managing firewall policies can be a daunting manual process with out-of-date spreadsheets. With our firewall capabilities, you can automate policy change requests across IT, security, and risk teams by sharing a single platform and consistent view. This gives each team the accurate visibility of the firewall estate. And when firewall audits are needed, ServiceNow can automate that process, which improves accuracy and reduces time and effort. Again, the firewall audits and reporting application can also be found on the ServiceNow store. It does require the ITOM visibility subscription, and you will also need to update to the latest CMDB CI class model application and ITOM pattern store app content. Lauren, I'll switch it over to you for a minute.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so again, this is kind of our final use case here that we talked to, and hopefully you've kind of seen the pattern in this entire session of using discovery to pull in more than just an inventory of what you're looking for, right? So more than just your network devices, more than end user devices, we're really using it to pull in as much data as we can for certs, for tags, and in this case, for your firewalls, but not just your firewalls as CIs, right? We want to, of course, bring it in as a CI, as a device level. But we're also using discovery to pull in those firewall policies, the firmware versions, and a few other hardware attributes that are currently being pulled in with our existing firewall pattern out of the box. Like again, those patterns we looked at for tags, it's going to be the same concept out of the box. And currently today we support out of the box for firewalls from Palo Alto. So that's the out of the box pattern we use. And you'll do that leveraging that pattern with serverless discovery. So it's just a matter of setting up your discovery schedule to run using that pattern. So it's telling it to go out and look for these firewall details that you're seeing. And then we can start to take action again on this data using our firewall dashboard that you're seeing here. So we're actually able to do things like request different policies. So of course, we're taking inventory of the firewalls, we're taking inventory of those existing policies that are in place, but how do we actually know if those policies are up to our security standards? Are they compliant with security? Are they outdated? Did we actually go into our firewall manager and update that, or did we just update the security policy on the security side? So those are very big gaps that can become a high risk if we're not auditing. So I'll have you go to the next dashboard there, Emily, if you don't mind. So this is where we're leveraging not only view to those requests and audits, but also to our firewall insights. So we can see, okay, what changes were made to the firewall policies. Are there requests coming in via that service catalog? Just like we looked at, there'd be another category for firewall requests that you could say, I need to request a new policy for this firewall based on, maybe this new service that we're doing, maybe a new integration somewhere we need to open up different things. You can have those requests come in and then actually manage them through our firewall insights and requests and audits to actually go in and track those new changes with the specific requests and audit tags that came in through the service catalog. So tracking that all the way through as you're making these changes per the request. And then auditing them as well. So you're actually going to create that audit request form, and it's going to actually submit that audit based on what you're looking for there to, again, compare what's happening in the security policy to what actually is happening in real time on your firewall at the policy level. Is it actually configured to meet what our security policy says today? Because again, as we talked about, those gaps can be incredibly risky. So being able to run those audits using our same discovery tool that we've been talking about all day today to identify where those gaps are, and then again, track any requests that are coming in to make sure we have one, inventory of our firewalls, inventory of the policy in place, but then apply that governance, make sure we're managing at the policy level, and make sure we're managing the requests that come in to keep our firewall policies as current and healthy as we possibly can.
Right. And that kind of almost wraps us up. We have about 11 more minutes. So thanks, Lauren, for giving us a little bit more information on firewall policies. And so before we wrap up and jump into the Q&A, I want to share this one last slide and get you really thinking about what's driving your IT business today. We've engaged with thousands of customers and realized that IT has 4 consistent outcomes. Resilience. You need to know, are my people working and productive? Are my systems up and running? Can we adhere to regulations and compliance? The next one is cost savings. Can we manage our investments wisely by reducing technical debt and consolidating our applications? Reducing OpEx through managing software and hardware life cycles. all while delivering operation efficiency. Next, innovation. Businesses are looking to IT to help enable the organization to deliver products faster through planning and alignment, and leverage DevOps teams to improve and automate service delivery. And finally, experience. Connecting customer, employee, and IT together as a unified experience and delivering intuitive user experiences to all personas. So hopefully some of these outcomes and what we've shown you today resonates with you to help you deliver these positive outcomes and more. We appreciate your time, and with that, I will open it up for Q&A.
All right. I think we have one actually in the Q&A tab here. It's a question about Service Graph connector availability. Are there integrations with Tanium, New Relic, Zabbix, MoveSoft integrations?
Lauren, specifically, do you know about any of those? I know I've seen Titanium on our potential future roadmap, but I don't know if it's fully available yet.
Yeah, it really depends, right? So I'm not sure about New Relic. I know for Zabbix, it's not necessary. It depends what you're trying to do, right? So we don't have a Service Graph connector with them, but if you're using it for monitoring, for event management, we do have integrations with all of those for monitoring from that perspective to integrate there. But Service Graph connectors, we do have roadmaps for those at this time. But yeah, check into the ServiceNow store because it's always being upgraded with new outcomes there.
And then let's see, I think we have a couple more. Can TLS management system be used to replace the certificate into place once it's renewed? This could be useful for the isolation instance with ACCV on it, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So when we were looking at those automated flows that when you get the certificate management module, when you have visibility, as I mentioned, when you go to that service catalog, you're going to have that new list of certificate management actions you can take. And under that list of automated flows that you have, it's going to be one to actually go ahead and renew that certificate. So in that case, it's specific to DigiCert. So it would depend where that certificate is coming from, what certificate authority you're using. But if it's through DigiCert, you can automate that renewal and that replacement and requesting a new certificate. Absolutely, that integration is there.
Thanks, Lauren. Do we have any other questions? If not, we'll give you about 8 minutes back in your day.
There was one more there in the Q&A tab, Emily.
Oh yeah, that works. Wondered if Discovery is only going to discover certificates on a Windows server referenced in, say, an IIS config, or whether it will search the whole certificate store. Whether it will search the whole certificate store. Sorry, I got that one. And inventory expired certs that I don't really care about.
Yeah. So it depends how you would want to configure, right? That's why we have those 4 different ways to pull in that data. So if you want to specify it by URL, or if you want to have Discovery run and pull in all your TLS certs, if you want to pull it from a specific CA, right? But I hear your point, right? If it's expired, I don't really care. So by default, Discovery is going to go out and pull out any expired certificates to keep it on your radar. It's just going to go into a box called expired certs, just so you can see what's been expired used in the past. If that's not useful to you, you don't want it in your CMDB for whatever reason, you can certainly, retire or expire that CI in your CMDB. You can create rules to not bring those in anymore. So, but by default, it is bringing in expired certs, so you can have visibility to those as well.
Sorry, Emily, I realized I threw that down right as you were reading it.
No, that's okay. All good.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Wow, great session today. Thank you again to Emily and Lauren for presenting. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you to the attendees for participating. Asking some of those questions always makes it that much better to have you all participating. As Emily has mentioned, there's one more session in this 7-part ITOM Talk series. The final session takes place next Wednesday, October 27th, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific. The session will dive into a better together story between ITOM, IT Operations Management, and CSM, Customer Service Management, and how they pair to provide a proactive customer service experience to your customers. I just dropped the registration link in the chat for those that have missed it. You can also obtain all the previous sessions. Those are on demand as well. Please be on the lookout for a follow-up email from myself. It could potentially get caught in spam, so please be aware of that. That's going to contain a link, the landing page that also houses the recordings and slide decks from today's presentation, as well as a few other resources if you want to dive into ITOM or some of the capabilities that we spoke about today. It will also include that link to redeem your Uber Eats gift card. As a thank you for attending, please enjoy your next meal on us. Thank you again for attending the session, and we look forward to seeing you next week in our final session.
Thank you. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
All right. Bye.